ladies. Welcome to something that we're going to be doing a little bit different. I'm just going to test this out and just see how this goes. I just got done finishing a podcast recording about a topic that we're going to be covering, and I just wanted to come on here and just share this with you, and maybe this would connect with you, and we could get some interaction on the topic. I'm also recording it as well, so it will be on our YouTube channel as well. So I have had the pleasure of, I'm going to say pleasure because I am just trying to listen to what God wants for me to do. But on my way home a couple weeks ago, I said, God, will you just prepare me for this next season? What's to come? And there was complete silence for about 2 weeks. And I think that we have all gone through that. And if you can just give me an amen, like, yep, I feel God's really silent in my life right now, or has been in a period in my of my life, then yeah, tell me that. Tell me that you totally understand that, because I think that's something that we all walk through. And obviously, I was like, all right, God's gonna come through. He's gonna tell me what He wants. But He came to me a couple weeks ago, or a week ago, and He said, Mackenzie, I want you to just understand or cover the Gospels. And this doesn't make me less of a Christian, but I definitely felt some am I allowed to say this? I was like, God, are you sure? Because I'm not a huge gospel fan. And here's why. Let me explain why. Because the Gospels are amazing with the stories. The Gospels are amazing with what Jesus does. It's His whole missions. But everyone before ascension, so before death, burial, and resurrection, and ascension into the heavens, are all living in a law-based system. They all are having to perform. They're all having to achieve this righteous standard. They are from day to day, it is exhausting. And what happens after this is there's so much freedom when we gain the Spirit of Jesus Christ. We no longer have to try to be righteous. We no longer have to strive for righteousness. We are righteous in Jesus Christ. That's our identity. And so studying the Gospels, it's this is so exhausting, because all these people are just trying to work their way into the kingdom of heaven, and they don't even know that the kingdom of heaven is literally in their face. And so to me, I'm like, Jesus, or God, are you sure you want me to study this? And so I did. I listened, and so I just was like, all right, God, what are you going to do with this? And the thing is most Christians now still live like ascension never happened. They still live in this law-based system that they have to perform for God, that they have to attain righteousness, that they have to work their way into the kingdom. And it was just this unveiling of, all right, God, this is where most people live, but I'm going to just reveal to me how to approach this with gracefulness and understanding, because that is where most people live. So anyway, long story short, that was I feel like the long version. I was diving into Matthew, and now I'm into Mark, and the story came about in Mark 5, about this woman who was healed. And I'm going to read a little bit to you. I read it in a podcast, but it says, when Jesus had crossed over again by boat on the other side, a large crowd gathered around him, and while he was by the sea, one of the synagogue leaders came, and when he saw Jesus, he fell to his feet and kept begging him, my little daughter is at death's door. Come and lay your hands on her so she can get well. So Jesus went with him, and a large crowd was following and pressing against him. A woman suffering from bleeding for 12 years had endured much under many doctors. She had spent everything she had and was not helped at all. On the contrary, she became worse. Having heard about Jesus, she came behind him in the crowd and touched his robe. For she said, if I can just touch his robes, I'll be made well. Instantly, her flow of blood ceased, and she sensed in her body that she was cured for her affliction. At once, Jesus realized in himself that power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and said, who touched my robe? His disciples said to him, you see the crowd pressing against you, and you ask who touched me? So he was looking around to see who had done this. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came with fear and trembling and fell down before him, told him the whole truth. Daughter, he said to her, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be free from your affliction. Now, The story goes on about how he heals this girl who actually is 12 years old. So the connection between this woman and her, they've are both like 12 years, right? And I was reading, I was like, all right, this is kind of weird. Like, let's do some research. And this woman, when you look at history, just being a woman in itself, we all go through this monthly cycle, right? And we feel, at least when it starts, we feel shame. We feel like something's wrong with us. We don't want to talk about it, right? Like I don't want to go in the store. Like some of us get embarrassed, right? Going and buying tampons and stuff. It just gets really embarrassing, right? And this woman, for 12 years, has been bleeding. And her culture, her community has deemed her as unclean, as rejected, like she is rejected this from this community, and she is on her last step. Now, when I asked, have people felt like God's been silent, I'm sure we have also felt like we don't have any other option. We're looking for our last option, right? um, that's been our life too, where we are like, God, you're my last resource, and I don't even know if this is going to work, but I have nothing else. I'm giving up hope, right? And she's broke. She's been to doctors. We've all been there, or we know people who have invested in their health, or we've invested in our health or our kids' health, and we are just handing away money, and we feel like nothing is going to be fixed, right? Like we are exhausted, and we say, God, I'm out. Like you're my last option. If you don't do this, if you don't heal this situation or you don't fix this situation, like I don't know what I'm going to do, right? And that's a very real thing for our life. And this is where this woman is at. She is rejected. She's looked as unclean. She's looked as dirty. And she just has nothing else left. She's broke, right? But the amazing thing about this story is while she's healed, which is what we usually get caught up in the Gospels, right? Like she's healed. But the amazing thing about this is when you look at the end, after she has come with fear and trembling to tell Jesus what has happened, he tells her, daughter. That is the first thing that he does, is he claims her identity. The whole world has rejected her. Her whole community has rejected her. She feels like she's rejected. She feels like she's not enough. She feels like she's dirty and gross. And God, the first thing that Jesus does is he looks her in the eye and he says, daughter, which comes back as this is who you are. Apart from your circumstances, apart from the world, apart from what the world is telling you, I'm going to claim your identity first. And then following, he says to her, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be free from your affliction. So it's always the identity first. It's always God in any circumstance. In your situation too, God is looking at you and he's saying, hey, daughter, now go with this. Now, the thing is, though, that we get twisted in our world is we think God needs to fix our situation before our identity, right? Like, if you actually fix this in my life, then I will know my identity. And Jesus is saying, no, you've got this backwards. You need to know your identity. And then if this situation is fixed, right, then go into peace. Even if your situation isn't fixed, still go into peace and freedom because you already know your identity. Your situation doesn't define you. Your identity does. And I am your identity. Therefore, I define you. And there's freedom in that, right? There's freedom in walking forward in that. And then, I say there's freedom, but someone else might be like, yeah, Mackenzie, there's freedom. Great. But my garbage is still sitting next to me, right? He hasn't healed my stuff. My community still looks at me like I'm a piece of garbage. Like Jesus tells me who I am, but I don't feel that way, right? I don't feel like someone's looking in my eyes saying, daughter, right? I feel like I'm an outcast. I feel like I'm broken. I don't feel like I'm enough. And this is where we have to understand that the world doesn't define us. Our situation doesn't define us, but we can rest in truth. And the reason we can rest in truth is because that's just who we are, right? And so there's freedom in that. And so the story of this woman, as simple as it is, as literally simple, like you could glaze over it. If all you were like, okay, yeah, she was healed, great. But if you don't understand, she has nothing else left. Put yourself in her shoes. I have nothing else to hang on to. Nothing else. This is my last resource. I've been rejected. I've been thrown out. I'm looked at as unacceptable. But the King of Kings looks you in the eye and says, no, this is who you are. What do you think those people around her were thinking? First of all, they're probably like, what in the heck is she doing here? Right? What is she doing here? Like, get away. Right? And she's terrified, but she has one strand of hope left. And God's saying, this is who you are. Right? Now go forward and be well. It's amazing. So that is what we do a podcast on. Like I said, I record this video too, which is so much fun. So this will be on our YouTube channel as well. But I just hope that this offers you some peace and some direction into your situation and what you're going through. And maybe you can see kind of the same thing. Like, man, I've been really dealing with my situation when I should be dealing with my identity. Which is just, it releases so much and just allows us to fight our battles with joy and peace and patience and understanding and just the fruit of the Spirit, because the fruit of the Spirit is literally within us as new creations. So thank you so much for watching this live video or the recording afterwards or the YouTube or listening to the podcast. But I just love this community, ladies, and I just love what God's doing in this amazing group. And I just hope that you are able to walk away with just a sense of freedom through your day-to-day living. All right, signing off. See you guys later. Bye.